My name is Harold Bennett, but everyone has always called me Grandpa Harry. I'm 71 years old, and on what should have been the calmest night of the year, Christmas night, long after the house had gone quiet, everything I believed about my family changed. It was 1 a.m. The lights were low. The hallway was silent. That's when my daughter-in-law knocked on my door. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't come inside. She just stood there and said something I will never forget. "Pack your things, and don't trust your son." I thought she was tired, upset, maybe overreacting, but the look on her face told me this wasn't emotion. It was fear. Tonight, I'm going to tell you what my family did to me. How one quiet warning in the middle of Christmas night exposed a truth my own son had been hiding, and how listening instead of arguing saved me from something I never saw coming. Because what I discovered after that knock wasn't sudden. It had been planned, discussed, and carefully kept from me. But before I continue, let me ask you, have you ever been warned about someone you trusted your whole life? Tell me where you're watching from in the comments. To everyone who listens and understands how betrayal doesn't always arrive loudly, thank you. Your support means more than you know. And if this is your first time here, consider subscribing. This channel exists for stories like this, the ones that unfold quietly, in the dark, when the truth finally slips out. Now, let me take you back to that hallway, to what I noticed once I started packing, and to the discovery that explained why my own son wanted me to stay asleep. Now, let me tell you my story. I didn't hear her footsteps. That's what I remember most clearly. My daughter-in-law Lily must have been standing outside my bedroom door for a while, working up the courage to knock. When she finally did, it was so soft I almost missed it. 3 gentle taps. Then silence. I sat up in bed. The guest room was dark except for the thin line of hallway light bleeding under the door. The house, my son Gerald's house in suburban Massachusetts, had been silent for hours. Dinner had ended around 9. The gifts were unwrapped. My granddaughter Rosemary had gone to bed smiling, clutching the stuffed elephant I'd gotten her. Everything had felt normal. Perfect, even. I pushed back the covers and opened the door. Lily stood there in her Christmas sweater, the one with the reindeer on it. Her arms were crossed tight against her chest. Her face was pale, drained of color, and her eyes, I'll never forget her eyes. They weren't angry or sad. They were terrified. "Harry," she whispered, "I need you to pack your things." I blinked at her. "What?" "Please, quietly, and leave before morning." I looked past her down the hallway toward the master bedroom where Gerald was sleeping. The door was closed. No light underneath. "Lily, what's going on? Did something happen?" She glanced over her shoulder, then back at me. Her voice dropped even lower. "I can't explain it all right now, but you need to trust me. Gerald, he's not who you think he is." The words didn't make sense. Gerald was my only son. I'd raised him alone after his mother, my wife Christabel, died when he was 12. We'd had our ups and downs like any father and son, but we were close, or at least I thought we were. "Lily, it's 1 a.m. You're scaring me." "Good," she said. "You should be scared." She reached into the pocket of her jeans and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She pressed it into my hand without looking at it. "Don't open this until you're in your car. And Harry, don't tell him I gave it to you. Don't tell him we talked. Just pack your things and go." Before I could respond, she turned and walked back down the hallway. Her steps were soundless on the carpet. She disappeared into the master bedroom and closed the door behind her with a soft click. I stood there holding the paper, my heart pounding in my chest. For a long moment, I didn't move. I wanted to knock on Gerald's door. I wanted to wake him up and demand an explanation. But something in Lily's voice, something raw and desperate, stopped me. I went back into the guest room and turned on the small lamp by the bed. The paper in my hand felt heavier than it should. I set it on the nightstand without opening it. Not yet. Instead, I started packing. I moved slowly, carefully, folding my clothes and placing them in the small duffel bag I'd brought. I packed my toiletries, my phone charger, the book I'd been reading. My hands were shaking, but I kept going. I kept thinking about Lily's face, the fear in her eyes, the way she'd glanced back at Gerald's door like she was checking to make sure he wasn't listening. When my bag was zipped, I picked up the piece of paper. I held it in my hands for a long time. Then I slipped it into my coat pocket, unopened. I grabbed my bag, turned off the lamp, and opened the door as quietly as I could. The hallway was empty. The house was still. I walked toward the front door, my shoes in my hand so I wouldn't make noise on the hardwood. I didn't look back, not at first, but when I reached the door and unlocked it, something made me pause. I turned around, and that's when I saw him. Gerald. He was standing at the top of the stairs, silhouetted in the darkness, staring down at me. He didn't say anything. He didn't move. He just watched. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I felt his eyes on me. I stepped outside into the freezing December air and closed the door behind me. My car was parked in the driveway. I threw my bag in the back seat, started the engine, and pulled out onto the empty street. My breath came in short, shallow bursts. I drove for 10 minutes before I finally pulled over into a gas station parking lot under a flickering streetlight. I turned off the engine, and I opened the piece of paper Lily had given me. It was a printed bank statement. My bank statement. But the account number wasn't mine. The name on it was, though, Harold Bennett. And the balance made my stomach drop. $127,000 in debt, on an account I'd never opened. Harry just found out someone opened a credit line in his name. But W. Cho did it. And why did Gerald just stand there watching him leave like he knew this was coming? If you want to know what's really on that piece of paper and what Harry does next, you need to subscribe right now. Because next chapter is where the lies start unraveling, and I promise you it gets so much worse. Hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and comment where you're watching from. Don't miss what happens next. I sat in that gas station parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at the bank statement. My name, my social security number, my address, but I'd never seen this account before in my life. The statement was dated 3 weeks ago. It showed monthly payments of $1,800, automatic withdrawals I never authorized, and at the bottom, in small print, it listed the primary cardholder, Gerald Bennett, my son. I read it again, then again. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold the paper. He'd opened a credit account in my name, used my information, signed me up for something I knew nothing about, and judging by the balance, he'd been doing it for years. I pulled out my phone. My first instinct was to call him, to scream, to demand answers. But Lily's words echoed in my head. Don't tell him I gave it to you. If I called Gerald now, he'd know Lily had warned me. And I didn't know what he'd do to her if he found out. So instead, I opened my email. I didn't expect to find anything. But there it was, an unread message sent 10 minutes ago. From Lily. No subject line. I opened it. Inside was a single line of text. There's more. Check the attachments. I'm sorry, Harry. I should have told you sooner. I clicked on the first file. It was another bank statement. A different account. Same story. Harold Bennett, $83,000 in debt. I opened the second file. A loan application. My signature was on it, or at least it looked like my signature, but I'd never signed this document. I'd never even heard of the lending company. The third file was a scanned check, made out to a company called Apex Management Solutions, $14,500. Signed by me, dated 6 months ago. I hadn't written it. I opened the fourth file, then the fifth, then the sixth. Each one was worse than the last. Credit cards I'd never applied for, loans I'd never taken out, business expenses charged to accounts in my name, payments to people I didn't know. By the time I finished, I'd counted 17 separate fraudulent accounts. Over $340,000 in total debt. all under my name, all opened by my son. I sat there in the cold, staring at my phone screen, trying to process what I was looking at. Gerald had destroyed me, quietly, methodically, over the course of years, and I'd had no idea. I thought about the times he'd asked me for my social security number. Just for tax purposes, Dad. I thought about the documents he'd had me sign. Insurance stuff. Nothing important. I thought about the way he'd insisted I stay with him over the holidays instead of getting a hotel. He'd needed me close, where he could control the narrative, where I wouldn't start asking questions. My phone buzzed. Another email from Lily. This one had no attachments. Just a message. I found all of this 3 months ago. I confronted him. He told me it was temporary, that he'd fix it. But tonight, I overheard him on the phone with someone named Desmond. They were talking about transferring more debt into Rosemary's name. Our daughter, Harry. He's going to do to her what he did to you. I felt something break inside my chest. Rosemary was 16 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. And Gerald, my son, the man I'd raised to be better than this, was planning to ruin her before she even had a chance. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, numb, as the reality settled over me like a weight I couldn't lift. My phone rang. Gerald. I stared at his name on the screen. For a moment, I considered not answering. But I needed to hear his voice. I needed to know if he'd say something, anything, that would make this make sense. I answered. Dad. His voice was calm. Too calm. Where are you? I left. I saw. Why? I didn't answer. Dad, talk to me. Did something happen? Did Lily say something to you? There it was. The question he really wanted to ask. No, I lied. I just needed some air. At 1 a.m? I'm an old man, Gerald. I don't sleep like I used to. A pause. Then, where are you staying? A motel, off Route 90. Which one? I didn't answer. Dad, I'm worried about you. Come back to the house, we'll talk in the morning. I'm fine. You don't sound fine. I closed my eyes. Good night, Gerald. I hung up before he could say anything else. Then I turned off my phone. I sat there in the silence, the bank statement spread across the passenger seat like evidence of a crime I hadn't committed. And for the first time in my life, I realized I didn't know my son at all. I didn't know what he was capable of. But I was about to find out, because I wasn't going to let this go. Not this time. I started the car and pulled back onto the highway. I had a name now. Desmond. And I was going to find out exactly who he was and what role he played in the destruction of my life. I didn't go to a motel that night. I drove. For hours, I just drove through the empty streets of Massachusetts with nowhere to go and a head full of questions I couldn't answer. By the time the sun came up, I was parked outside a 24-hour diner in Worcester, staring at my phone. I'd turned it back on. 12 missed calls from Gerald, 3 voicemails I didn't listen to, and 1 new email from Lily, sent at 4:47 a.m. The subject line said, "You need to know about Desmond." I opened it. Harry, I don't have much time. Gerald thinks I'm asleep. Desmond is Gerald's former business partner. They started a consulting firm together 7 years ago, Bennett and Hale Solutions. Everything was fine at first. But 3 years ago, Desmond found discrepancies in the books. Money missing. Clients being billed twice. Gerald told him it was accounting errors. It wasn't. Gerald had been siphoning funds from the business into personal accounts he opened using your information. When Desmond threatened to report it, Gerald framed him. He falsified documents, forged Desmond's signature on fraudulent invoices, and made it look like Desmond was the one stealing. Desmond went to prison 2 years ago. He's still there. Gerald took over the company, sold it 6 months later for $1.2 million, and none of that money went toward paying back what he stole from you. It went somewhere else, to someone named Jane. I don't know who she is, but Gerald's been paying her $8,000 a month for the last 2 years. I found the wire transfers. please be careful. Gerald knows you left, and he's looking for you. I read the email 3 times. Then I sat back in my seat and tried to breathe. Desmond was in prison for something my son did, and Gerald had used my name, my identity, to cover his tracks. I felt sick, not just because of what Gerald had done to me, but because an innocent man was sitting in a cell right now, serving time for crimes my son committed. I had to find Desmond. I had to hear his side of the story. I pulled out my laptop from my duffel bag and opened it on the diner table. I ordered coffee I didn't drink and started searching. It didn't take long. Desmond Hale, sentenced to 5 years for wire fraud and embezzlement. Currently incarcerated at MCI Shirley, a medium-security prison about 30 miles from where I was sitting. I kept digging. I found an old article from a local business journal, a photo of Gerald and Desmond at a ribbon-cutting ceremony, both of them smiling, shaking hands with the mayor. The headline read, "Local Entrepreneurs Launch New Consulting Firm." Desmond looked like a good man, clean-cut, friendly, the kind of guy you'd trust with your business, and Gerald had destroyed him. I found Desmond's wife on Facebook. Her name was Rosemary, the same name as my granddaughter, which felt like some kind of cruel coincidence. Her profile was private, but her cover photo was public. Her and Desmond on their wedding day, laughing in the sunlight. The most recent post was from 6 months ago. Still believing, still praying. The truth will come out. I closed my laptop and stared out the window. A man was in prison because of my son, and I was the only person who could prove his innocence. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Bennett, my name is Jane Cartwright. I believe we need to talk. Your son has been lying to you for a very long time. If you want the truth, meet me today. 2 p.m., Riverside Park, near the fountain. Come alone." I stared at the message. Jane, the woman Gerald had been paying $8,000 a month. Every instinct told me this was a trap, but I needed answers, and Jane, whoever she was, had them. I texted back, "I'll be there." Then I sat in that diner until noon, drinking cold coffee and wondering how my son had become someone I didn't recognize. Riverside Park was nearly empty when I arrived. The fountain in the center wasn't running. It was too cold. A few people jogged past. A woman walked her dog. Otherwise, the place felt abandoned. I sat on a bench near the fountain and waited. At exactly 2 p.m., a woman approached. She was in her mid-40s, blonde, wearing a long coat and sunglasses even though the sky was overcast. She moved with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing something no one else does. She sat down next to me without introduction. "Mr. Bennett," she said. Her voice was smooth, measured. "Thank you for coming." "Who are you?" She took off her sunglasses and looked at me directly. "My name is Jane Cartwright, and 23 years ago, I was engaged to your son." I blinked. Gerald had never mentioned a Jane. Not once. "We met in college," she continued. "Boston University. We were together for 3 years. We were going to get married. And then one day, Gerald told me he couldn't do it. He said he'd met someone else. Someone named Christabel? My late wife's name. He left me," Jane said quietly. "Took the ring back. Told me to move on. So I did. I left Boston. I built a life somewhere else. And I didn't think about Gerald Bennett for 20 years. She paused. "Until 2 years ago, when he called me out of nowhere. He said he needed my help, that he'd made some mistakes and needed someone he could trust, someone from his past who wouldn't ask too many questions." "What kind of help?" I asked. Jane reached into her coat and pulled out a manila envelope. She handed it to me. "He hired me to help him hide money, offshore accounts, shell companies. He told me it was for tax purposes, that he was protecting assets from a business partner who was trying to sue him." I opened the envelope. Inside were bank statements, wire transfer receipts, account numbers in the Cayman Islands. Gerald's been moving money out of the country for 2 years, Jane said. And not just his money. Yours, too. My stomach turned. He used your credit, your identity to open lines of financing he could funnel overseas. He made it look legitimate. Business loans, investment accounts. But it was all fraud. And when his partner Desmond started asking questions, Gerald panicked. He framed Desmond, sent him to prison, and kept moving money. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Jane's jaw tightened. "Because 6 months ago, I found out what he was really doing. I found out he wasn't just hiding business money. He was stealing from you, from his own father, and when I confronted him, he threatened me." She pulled up her sleeve. There was a bruise on her forearm, faded but still visible. "He told me if I ever said anything, he'd make sure I went down with him, that he'd tell the authorities I was the mastermind, that I'd manipulated him. He said no one would believe me over him." Her hands were shaking now. "But I kept records. Every transaction, every email, every phone call, because I knew one day he'd try to destroy me the way he destroyed Desmond." I looked at the documents in my hands. "Why didn't you go to the police?" "Because I was scared," she said simply. "And because I didn't have proof that Gerald was the one stealing from you. I only knew about the overseas accounts. I didn't know about the credit fraud until Lily reached out to me 3 days ago." I froze. "Lily contacted you?" Jane nodded. "She found my name in Gerald's phone records. She called me. She told me what he'd done to you. She told me about Rosemary, and she asked me to help." I sat back, trying to process everything. Lily and Jane had been working together, and I hadn't known. "So what now?" I asked. Jane leaned forward. "Now, we take him down. Together. I have the offshore records. Lily has the credit fraud documentation. And you," she looked at me carefully, "you have something Gerald can never fake. You have your voice, your testimony. You're the victim. And when you go public, people will listen." I thought about Desmond, sitting in prison. I thought about Rosemary, my granddaughter, whose future Gerald was ready to destroy. I thought about Lily, risking everything to tell me the truth. And I thought about my son, the boy I raised, the man I thought I knew, who had become someone capable of this. "What's your angle?" I asked Jane. "Why do you really want to help me?" She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Because Gerald Bennett ruined my life once, and I'm not going to let him do it again. Not to you, not to anyone." She stood up. "Think about it. If you want to move forward, meet me tomorrow. Same time, same place. And bring Lily." She walked away before I could respond. I sat there on that bench, surrounded by evidence of my son's crimes, and realized something I hadn't fully accepted until that moment. This wasn't just about stolen money. This was about power, control, and a man who had spent years believing he could get away with anything. But he was wrong, because I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. I pulled out my phone and texted Lily, "I met Jane. We need to talk, all 3 of us." Her response came immediately. "I'm ready. Let's end this." And just like that, the plan began. Jane just revealed Gerald's been hiding money offshore, and she's got the proof. But here's the question. Can Harry really trust her? Or is Jane playing her own game? The next chapter is where Harry, Lily, and Jane team up to take Gerald down, and it's going to be brutal. If you're not subscribed right now, you're missing the revenge plan of a lifetime. Subscribe, hit that like button, and comment Team Harry if you think Gerald's about to get what he deserves. Now, let's dive into it. We met in a rented storage unit on the edge of town. It was the only place we knew Gerald couldn't trace. Lily arrived first, her face drawn and tired. She'd been living in that house with him for 3 days since I left, pretending everything was normal, pretending she didn't know what he'd done. Jane showed up 10 minutes later with 2 bankers' boxes full of documents. And me? I brought something Gerald never expected me to have. Proof that I wasn't the only victim. "I went to see Desmond yesterday," I said. setting a folder on the metal table between us. Both women looked up. "You visited him in prison?" Lily asked. I nodded. It had taken everything in me to walk through those security checkpoints, to sit across from a man I'd never met and tell him I was the father of the person who destroyed his life. But Desmond didn't blame me. He thanked me. "He gave me this," I said, opening the folder. Inside were copies of emails, financial records, and a handwritten timeline of everything that had happened at Bennett and Hale Solutions. Jane leaned forward, reading quickly. "This is exactly what we need," she said quietly. "This proves Gerald falsified the invoices. It shows the money trail leading back to accounts in your name." "There's more," I said. "Desmond's lawyer has been trying to get his case reopened for a year, but they didn't have enough evidence. Now they do. If we bring this forward, Desmond walks free, and Gerald goes to prison in his place." Lily closed her eyes. I knew what she was thinking. Gerald was still her husband, still the father of her daughter, but he was also a criminal who'd been willing to sacrifice his own child to save himself. "I filed for divorce this morning," Lily said softly. "Emergency custody of Rosemary. I told the court Gerald's been moving assets into her name without her knowledge. They granted a temporary restraining order. He can't contact her. He can't access any accounts with her name on them." "How did he react?" Jane asked. Lily's mouth tightened. "He doesn't know yet. The papers are being served today." I looked at both of them. Two women who had every reason to walk away, to protect themselves, to let Gerald get away with it. But they were here. "So, what's the plan?" I asked. Jane pulled out a laptop. "We go public," she said. "Not to the police, not yet, to the media. I have a contact at the Boston Globe, an investigative journalist who specializes in white-collar crime. We give him everything. The offshore accounts, the credit fraud, Desmond's case, your testimony, Lily's documentation, all of it." "And then?" Lily asked. "Then we let the story do what Gerald can't control. Once it's public, the FBI will have no choice but to investigate. The pressure will be too high. Gerald won't be able to talk his way out of this." I sat back. "He'll come after us," I said. "He will," Jane agreed. "Which is why we need leverage, something that makes him too afraid to retaliate." She pulled a single piece of paper from the bottom of one of the boxes. "This is a recorded conversation between Gerald and me from 8 months ago. He didn't know I was recording. In it, he admits to framing Desmond. He admits to using your identity, and he threatens to make me disappear if I ever told anyone." The room went silent. "You've been sitting on this for 8 months?" Lily asked. "I was terrified," Jane said simply, "but I'm not anymore." I looked at the paper, then at Jane. "If we do this, there's no going back. Gerald will lose everything. His business, his reputation, his freedom." "Good," Lily said. Her voice was steady, cold. I'd never heard her sound like that before. "He was going to destroy Rosemary," she continued. "He was going to put her in debt before she even turned 18. He deserves everything that's coming to him." Jane nodded. "We move tomorrow. I'll contact the journalist tonight. Harry, you'll need to be ready to go on record. Lily, you'll need to provide the financial documents. And I'll hand over the offshore account records and the recording." "What about Rosemary?" I asked. "Does she know?" Lily shook her head. "Not yet, but I'll tell her tonight. She deserves to hear it from me." We spent the next 2 hours going through every document, every email, every transaction. We built a timeline. We outlined the story. We made sure there were no gaps Gerald could exploit. And when we were finished, I looked at both women and realized something. We weren't just taking Gerald down. We were taking back our lives. "One more thing," I said. They both looked at me. "When this is over, I want to meet with Gerald, face to face, before he's arrested. I need to look him in the eye and tell him exactly what he did to me." Lily hesitated. "Harry, that's not safe." "I don't care. I need him to know that I know, that I'm the reason his world is falling apart." Jane studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. I'll arrange it, but we do it my way. Public place, recorded. And if he makes one wrong move, we end it. Agreed. We shook hands. And just like that, the trap was set. Gerald thought he'd gotten away with it. He thought his father was too old, too trusting, too easy to control. But he was wrong. And tomorrow, he'd find out just how wrong. The revenge plan is set. Tomorrow, Gerald's entire world comes crashing down. But Harry wants one final confrontation first. Face to face. Father to son. The final chapter is the moment we've all been waiting for, and I promise you, it's going to be devastating. If you're not subscribed, you're about to miss the most satisfying takedown you've ever seen. Subscribe now, smash that like button, and comment justice if you're ready to watch Gerald pay for everything he's done. Let's go. The meeting was set for noon at a cafe downtown. Public, crowded, recorded. Gerald walked in 5 minutes late, wearing a suit like he was coming from a business meeting. He smiled when he saw me. That same easy smile I'd seen 1,000 times growing up. Like nothing had changed. Like he hadn't destroyed me. He sat down across from me and ordered coffee. "Dad," he said warmly, "I'm glad you called. I've been worried about you." I didn't respond. I just slid the folder across the table. His smile faltered. "What's this?" "Open it." He did. I watched his face as he flipped through the pages. The bank statements, the loan documents, the wire transfers, Desmond's timeline, Jane's recording transcript. His expression didn't change much, but his hands stopped moving. "Where did you get this?" he asked quietly. "Does it matter?" He set the folder down and leaned back, his jaw tight. "Dad, listen to me. I can explain all of this." "No," I said. "You can't." He blinked. "You stole from me, Gerald. You used my name to commit fraud. You sent an innocent man to prison. You threatened women. You were going to destroy your own daughter's future to cover your tracks. I was protecting us. Don't." My voice was harder than I'd ever heard it. "Don't insult me by pretending this was for anyone but yourself." Gerald stared at me. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want you to confess. Publicly. I want you to clear Desmond's name. I want you to return every cent you stole. And I want you to turn yourself in." He laughed. Actually laughed. "You think I'm just going to walk into a police station and—" "You don't have a choice," I said, "because in about 3 hours, the Boston Globe is publishing a full investigative report on everything you've done. Your face will be on the front page. The FBI is already opening a case, and by tomorrow morning, every person you've ever done business with will know exactly who you are." The color drained from his face. "You wouldn't." "I already did." He stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You're making a mistake, Dad. You don't understand what you're doing. There are people involved in this. People who won't let you just—" "Sit down, Gerald." He froze. I stood up slowly, my hands steady. "I'm 71 years old. I raised you by myself after your mother died. I worked 2 jobs to put you through college. I gave you everything I had, and you repaid me by stealing my identity and destroying my life." My voice cracked, but I didn't stop. "You don't get to threaten me anymore. You don't get to manipulate me. You don't get to pretend you're the victim. This ends today." Gerald's face twisted. "You'll regret this." "No," I said quietly. "You will." I walked out of that cafe and didn't look back. 3 months later, Gerald was arrested. The article ran exactly as planned. The FBI investigation moved quickly. Desmond was released from prison after his conviction was overturned. He's rebuilding his life now, and we talk once a week. Jane testified against Gerald in exchange for immunity. She started over somewhere out west. We don't talk much, but she sends me a Christmas card every year. Lily and Rosemary moved into a small house across town. Rosemary knows everything now. It was hard, But she's stronger than I ever gave her credit for. She's applying to colleges this year, debt-free. As for me, I'm living in a small cabin in Vermont. Land my wife left me before she died. It's quiet here, peaceful. Gerald pled guilty to 15 counts of fraud, identity theft, and obstruction of justice. He's serving 8 years in a federal prison. I haven't visited him. I don't know if I ever will. People ask me if I'm angry, if I hate him. And the truth is, I don't know. He's still my son. But he's also the man who tried to destroy me. Maybe one day I'll forgive him. But not today. Today, I'm just grateful I listened to that knock at 1 a.m. on Christmas night, because if I hadn't, I'd still be living in the dark, believing a lie. And now I'm free. Harry got his justice. Gerald got what he deserved. And the truth finally came out. If this story moved you, if you felt every moment of Harry's pain and his power, then do me one favor. Subscribe to this channel right now. Because stories like this, raw and real and unforgettable, are what we do here. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and comment below telling me, would you have forgiven Gerald, or would you have walked away forever? Thank you for being part of Harry's journey. I'll see you in the next story. And trust me, it's going to be just as powerful